President, Public Affairs with Kinder Morgan.
Jake Larson with Public Affairs, Kinder Morgan.
Tracy Shield, City Council.
I'm Daphne Tenori. I'm with the City Council in Kyle.
Scott Sellers, City Manager.
Angela Williamson, Project Manager, Kinder Morgan.
Kevin Mosley, I'm the Project Director, Kinder Morgan.
Lance Collinsworth, I'm the right-of-way supervisor, and I'm with PRC.
Leon Barber, City Engineer. Jerry Hendricks, Chief of Staff.
And we have Dex Ellison, council member, who's on his way.
Right
And right there at the door.
There we go.
Perfect.
Good morning.
It's like the introduction.
I can scoot over here, Sure. I'm gonna get back there. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Well, thanks for having us today, and we had a chance to meet with the city engineer and chief of staff and others a few weeks ago, and were informed of some concerns that you had on specific routing as related to the city. And so what we've been doing over the last few weeks and bringing in our project team from an engineering perspective, project management perspective, and our land department is taking a look at some options which we want to share with you. But with the understanding that whenever we're routing these projects, we take into a whole host of considerations of why we are where we are. And what's been happening over the last few months is we get a closer look. We get on the ground. We start doing surveys, and then talking to local jurisdictions like your own and seeing what you think about that, and if you have any specific concerns that may not, in our initial review, be as visible to us as they are when you all take a look at being experts on the area. So what Angela's going to share with you, I just want to understand, we've only begun the initial review of those alternatives. Every alternative will have potentially different landowners. It will have different tracks. It will have different environmental reviews. So while from a purely potential constructability standpoint or from a routing point, we think we have some options, but we don't want to say definitively because we still need to do that additional review. And that's always a challenge in pipeline routing, is that while it may look like a good alternative to move it over here, there's always something over there and someone else over there. And we want to make sure that any routing adjustments we do take into consideration and into account all of that. So with that, just with an understanding that what I wanted to accomplish today was to make sure that we take what's been expressed to us. It's very important to us what local governments think and what local governments' concerns are. And we've really done some work that I think you'll see to look at some alternatives which we're continuing to explore. And that's where we are today. So.
Need the city Wi-Fi.
I do, I think so.
It's guests. Let's see, account guests, and then
Guest is top protected with a password. Staff Wi-Fi, I believe, is Kyle 78640.
Oh, actually, I think I got it.
public.
Yeah, it's loading now, so we should be okay. Thank you.
Are you going to put something up there?
Yes, so do
Oh.
y'all have a cord that I can connect to that, or?
It's Chromecast.
I don't know what that is, so. Is that another?
Are you doing Chrome?
Yes.
All right.
Click on one of those up there. Or maybe you're.
Cast.
Yeah, give it 1 second for
Okay.
it to kick on here, and then you'll see it.
We can pass this around. I have 6 copies, so I'm not sure if we'll have enough, but we can start with that.
And while I guess a couple more comments before we kick off, just from an overview perspective on the project too. We passed around some general information
Yes.
to you about the project, just from a scheduling standpoint. We still are in the early stages of the project in the sense that obviously no construction or pre-construction has taken place. We're still working through the route review and working through the permitting process, and we're working towards a construction schedule of the fall of 2019. So over the next several months, finalizing our route is going to be a big part of our plan.
You are special. Oh, you know what? You've gotta be on the city network. Doesn't matter which one. Let's see. Mm.
Maybe we can speak from the handouts, or we can't get on?
We can speak from the handout and then I can point to
Okay.
certain things
Okay.
and turn it around.
I just want to I recognize everyone's
Yeah.
time.
It won't work, okay.
Not showing up.
All right, so I'll walk you through the handout that we have. So what I had asked of our engineering team is to overlay the city limits and the ETJ on the aerial and with our alignment through there. So we are coming in and along Highway 150, so FM 150 or Ranch Road 150. And then we're turning down and then coming through the center and
Is the purple
More-
line on here?
yeah, it's the
Mhm.
purple line, yeah. More southerly portion of the city limits. We do stay on the north side of the Blanco River for this, as we come into the city. And this is, right now what you see on here is our preferred route. We show the major roads on here, like I said, the river, Blanco River. And then the county line is also shown on here, so you can get a reference for where we are. So, and this information is just GIS public information, so if there have been any recent changes to the city limits or to the ETJ, I guess I would need that information from you all. So what I'm gonna do is work from west to east through the town, and I'll show you certain parcels. I know in particular, there was one parcel that was a development that was planned. And what we've done is we've taken into consideration, and we're still looking at different options through this area. But development is always important to us because we like to maintain our 50-foot permanent easement. We purchased that and it's maintained as a 50-foot for the duration and the life of the pipeline. So I'm gonna zoom in here and just give me a minute and I will get this set up and show you guys in particular what we're looking at as far as several crossings at I-35, the preferred as well, and some of the different things that we look for through the area. And I wish we could get it up on the screen for you. It would make this more helpful.
Do you have cords?
Jerry's looking for a word. Like I said, he emailed me the link.
What's the approximate distance from the pipeline to the Blanco River there where it comes the closest?
That's a good question. I can measure that off for you. Just let me 1 second. We're pretty far. We're definitely outside of the 100-year and the 500-year. There's a pretty big elevation change through there. Just need to turn off a couple of things in here.
And when you say 100 and 500 year, you're looking at the
The floodplain.
most, the most current one coming out, because they've changed it.
I'm not aware of that, so that is good information.
The Atlas 14 data is what you.
Atlas 14, okay. I would think that that's what is being,
Because
that we'll update and
Mhm.
reference.
Their 500 year and our Halloween 500 year are two different
Two different
things.
things.
Yeah, the 500 is the new 100.
Okay.
So you're coming up another couple of feet. Probably.
Okay, that's good to know. Okay, I'm gonna turn on the city limits.
No luck, Jerry?
Okay. So the first question was, how far are we from the Blanco River? And, we are currently, and we haven't firmed this up, but currently we're over 1,000 feet, from the edge of bank, from the scour edge of bank, from the major flood that had occurred. But the route that we've chosen, so let me relate this back to here. I don't know. All right, so the ETJ starts up at Farm to Market Road 150, and we turn south and head down toward the river. We do have several water bodies that we do cross, but construction methods are still we're trying to determine the best crossing method for those. The positive to coming closer to that area would be it's limited development through there, and we do have some farm fields that we are going through. So the impact to residents and the town itself would be limited. And this is just a preferred route at this point, but we are, like I said, looking at other options in the area. Then approaching Old Stagecoach Road, which, if you look on here, is, let's see here, so 35 runs pretty much down the middle of the exhibit. Stagecoach is the gray line that is parallel to I-35 and just to the east. And you can see that it's still, there's some city limit with ETJ intermixed in there.
Does this help? Log in there.
Yes, I can log in there. Well, I'm not sure if I can log in there.
Should be able to, just the link.
Okay.
What is your username?
Yeah, if I can remember, because it is automatic.
Is it a Google?
It should be your full email address, like a Kinder Morgan.
Is it Angela
Mine is like,
Help me just
yeah,
because
it's your
I need a
first name
phone.
dot
Dot.
last name.
That was
Okay.
dot last time, that's right.
And mine's at
Where
Pipeline Cloud.
is,
I don't know if yours is the same.
Old
Yes. .com? Okay.
So this is Opal right here. Yeah, you're probably, so that's Roland.
That's
Right there,
Roland
right in that
there.
orange tip,
Okay.
yep.
Says here y'all
That's
have
Opal.
some existing
Yeah,
pipelines.
so 137
County
is
area,
Roland.
all of that is
138 is
existing
Opal.
pipeline.
Okay.
Do y'all have any,
You got it? Okay.
Get it, Farm.
Oh, yeah, farm's going.
Yeah.
y'all have any,
Farm.
obviously not Hayes County, but any pipeline that is no longer active? that is just sitting idly anywhere?
In this area, I'm not aware of any, no.
No, not that I'm aware of either.
What becomes of, I mean, do y'all have any of that, just generally speaking, what becomes of those
If
pipelines?
a
that-
pipeline is not, it is for whatever reason not used, there's a it depends on what product is in it, but there are processes for abandoning the line in place. Sometimes we'll remove the pipe, sometimes we'll leave it in place, sometimes we'll fill it up. Sometimes we'll cap it on either ends. If it's a natural gas interstate project, there's a formal regulatory abandonment process that you have to follow. It just depends. Sometimes it's more impactful to try to remove a pipeline from an area than to leave it in place.
Right.
So it depends on a particular situation.
Okay.
With this pipeline, it would be abandoned in place.
It would.
You mean if we didn't use this
Right.
new one anymore?
Right, right.
I would assume so, yeah.
And then you would continue to maintain the easement in perpetuity even with it abandoned in place.
Whatever, if we have obligations pursuant to our easement, yeah. we
Yeah.
would, yeah.
All right, return the city limit later again. Okay. So, 150 is right here, I-35, right here. And,
Do you actually want to try me? See if I-
Um,
Come over here.
yeah.
I'll just sit back here.
you have a lot of options to choose from, so you can see that we do take a lot of information into consideration when we're reviewing our routes. Okay, so 150 up here, I-35 right here. Coming down through the rural area and skirting the city limit.
Can we talk about these as you go?
Oh, sure, you can ask me any questions, yep.
So when you say, I mean, earlier you said there's one potential development, I assume that's Paramount, which is closer to 35. So I wanna talk about the rural area that you just mentioned.
Sure.
I'm not sure if you've met with those property owners yet.
Okay.
That would be the Raytech property, or the development we call Block River Ranch.
Which one?
The first departure from 150
This
south.
one right here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah. So that is a very large master plan development that
Okay.
was annexed in 2016. The major roadways were annexed into it. The remaining parcel, what we'll call rural right now with the county, was not annexed because it's in what's called a public improvement district, which is a financing tool
okay,
for the development. It's 2,260 acres of master plan development. So there's a corporate campus, there is a destination resort, actually almost exactly under where 3350 looks like.
right here.
Yeah, somewhere right in there is where that large resort is anticipated.
Okay,
I can't disclose further their negotiations, but we're very close to having a decision with that destination resort developer. And the first 600 homes are just kicking off January of this year, so you'll see that the boulevard, Six Creeks Boulevard, moving back toward that area. That boulevard will go all the way to the river.
is
where
that
there
this
will
right
be-
here or a different?
No, it comes off Old Stagecoach Road. So you
Okay.
see that abandoned Old Stagecoach right a little further north,
Okay,
right up in there. Yep,
Okay.
right there, right there. So if you were to follow that almost due west to the river, that's where that Six Creeks Boulevard will end up at a probably 15-acre public park all along the river.
Okay.
And that's going to be a riverfront with restaurants, shops, maybe some improvements within the river, like a recreational kayak park, things like that.
okay,
I'm not sure how many residential homes overall, but I know there's about 150 acres of commercial development planned along 150, which this pipeline somewhat parallels 150 also. The plans have already been approved, working both with the city and the county. And so, I mean, what I'm trying to say is that's already big approved master plan development that's underway.
Yeah.
And if you were to go along Stagecoach, you'll see the first phase of that
Okay.
moving back toward that area.
So I did notice that when I was driving around, and what we like to do is get the plats once they've been filed. So if that
Yeah.
information is available,
We
and
have it for phase one.
yeah, preferably if we could get GIS files
Sure.
from you guys, some shape files, that would allow me to get in
Make a note.
and quickly evaluate
You got it.
what the impacts would be. And I can give you an example of how we will accommodate that kind of information. But I shouldn't say accommodate, it's more of I take it into consideration and we review it as a team, and we evaluate the overall pros and cons
Sure.
of what we are doing, because we want to limit impacts.
Right.
That's our goal. We don't want to create an issue for the landowners, because we're subsurface, and you know the right of ways are kept and maintained very, very nicely, especially through the populated areas. So let me just touch
I think
on.
part of the issue too right now is, we are one of the fastest growing cities on this corridor.
Yeah, so.
And so right now you're
I think
seeing all of this
rural
vacant
fast.
land, but the reality is,
It's planned for
Yeah,
development.
most of it's-
it's
Yeah,
pretty much
most of
all
it's
gone.
planned.
Yeah.
And they
Yeah.
have, maps of our current.
but when you're
development
talking
plans.
about it, you can't talk about it as if it's just undeveloped land. I mean, this is,
A lot of it's already.
the rawness is gone. The grounds are starting to be turned. So, we have to start looking at this as houses, as businesses, not just
Mhm.
land.
Yep.
So,
And so shape files would help me if they have a plat, if they're even in pre-plat phase, if they're willing to share that information.
Yeah.
We can take that into consideration. If they're final, then we definitely need to see that as well, because,
Yeah, phase
that's-
one is final, obviously.
Yeah,
Phase
okay.
two is under review.
And normally, what happens is when the land agents are in discussions with the landowners, is they ask those questions, and they want to know if it's planned for development, and they ask to receive that information as far as shape files or plats. If they're not willing to share that information, we can't try to accommodate and work around that. But that's our goal, is to work around those things, so.
Yeah, I'm still, anyway, kind of flabbergasted by this, but.
I mean,
Oh, well.
we just found out about this, and we
Yeah.
didn't even find out through y'all. We found out through other people, and that, the community impact did it.
Uh-huh.
We weren't reached out to, and so it's kind of like all of a sudden we're planning the future of our city.
And which is gonna double in the next 20 years, okay? So we're talking about 100,000 people.
And then all of a
In
sudden
this
we're like,
city.
oh yeah, by the way,
Yeah,
you're getting
you
a
want
pipeline.
Yeah, and you want a huge track through it.
So we're
Especially
still
with-
kind of like,
Yeah, but you'll get to another one of my concerns over here
Sure.
in a bit.
Okay.
So what I need to make the point, I made it loosely earlier, but you'll see that it's not all within the yellow city limits, and that's because we actually disannex some of that so we could have a special finance tool.
Okay.
But if you were to take that yellow large chunk, which is the next developer south, and kind of draw a line back up to the yellow up here, all that is basically as if it was core urban density, right?
Okay.
The big yellow chunk to the south is the next development, which is the Nance and then the McCoy development. We entitled them during the same annexation in 2016 to 8,000 and 9,000 residential or LUEs, living unit equivalent density respectively. So that plus the 4,000 plus LUE that we have in the Blanc River Ranch, there's almost 22,000 living unit equivalents that have already been contractually approved for those three developments.
Okay.
So that gives you an idea of how dense. I mean, we're looking you know, 3-4 homes an acre, you
Mhm.
know.
Yeah, it's exciting growth, it sounds like, from, you know, what you guys are telling us.
Yeah, it is. It is.
And, you know, I wanna try to plan around that, so that we are, limiting the impacts to the area.
They all have land planners, so I'll see if I can get shape files from each one of them to give to you.
That would be
It'll
great.
Very cursory, but.
Very helpful. Okay, so let's go over here to Stagecoach. So I did receive the plat for a tiny homes development. I'm sure you guys are familiar with this, or no?
So that property was annexed in 2018.
Okay,
Probably, I'm trying to think, July, August maybe timeframe of 2018.
okay,
And it was going to be a tiny home development. When the city annexed it, they no longer comply with the city guidelines, our development standards.
okay,
So that owner is looking for an alternate way of developing.
okay,
But that's also right along the route of 150, so it was important for the city to preserve the 150 corridor through there,
Okay.
which is why we annexed it, to make sure that we still have the ability to get that 100 feet of right-of-way for 150 alignment.
Okay.
through there. So yeah, we're intimately familiar with
okay.
what's happening.
So what I wanna point out here is, so you can see that when we were provided that information, we came up with alternatives to route around there, and, so that's what you see here, this, line right here is the preferred. But then we have these alternatives that we're also evaluating along with the preferred route. So the cyan color through here and through here.
Yeah, that further southwest alternative, if there would be one, that's probably the most palatable, since it's going up through a kind of a low area.
This one down through
Mhm.
here.
Yeah.
Where's the farm?
Millburg Farm, is that the one you're referring to?
Tobias.
Tobias.
Tobias is
That's
right there at
Tobias Ranch.
137 in Old Stagecoach.
Yes.
So just right there on the corner.
Okay, and then also I was looking at the organic farm for 10 million.
Yeah, for the
Yeah.
Millburg Farm.
Yeah, there it is, okay.
Yeah.
Millburg, yeah.
5 acres.
Okay. Thank you.
We did receive, a request to contact the Millburg Farm, and I believe our land agents have been, talking with them about, their concerns. So then I'll continue on, closer to 35. So right now, we have a crossing, at this location or near this location, and, in between this RV
Mhm.
business and, these commercial buildings through here.
The
Wait a minute. Yeah, I was gonna say, where's the bakery?
The bakery, it's probably over here.
No, that's
No.
further
Further
south.
south.
It's
You're-
further
yeah,
south,
way-
okay.
way south.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Those are some industrial buildings right there. Mr. Barra owns,
Mhm.
that's on the very far right.
Yeah, now that I see the Junkie Place and all of that. Okay.
We had, several options that we had looked at through this area. We did, hear that this parcel right here was, in an option for purchase and then development. And so what we had decided to do in working with landowners farther south, which I believe this parcel is ETJ right here, we had pulled the corridor over here closer to this road, but then I have heard that 158 is planned for improvement, and so I would like to get that information as well.
Of course.
This is, so if you look at your map there, you'll see that, that's not in city limits or ETJ. Wanna make sure we're looking at the same property
Mm-mm.
together.
She's right here.
Oh, you're right there? Okay.
Yeah, she's
I'm
right
looking
there.
one
Right there.
east.
Yeah, no,
So
it
the-
is, he's, yeah, she's right here, cause that's the old post right there. the
Okay,
very
yeah, so I'm looking at the one
triangle.
further east, right
Those-
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, that one is actually planned for development in conjunction with the parcel to the east that I was just referring to.
Okay.
Different developer, but they wanna tie in, so the one just to the east is a large municipal utility district called, Waterstone.
Just
yeah.
to the east, right here, is this? what
Right
you're
there, yeah,
saying?
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So that's the Waterstone development. That is numbers are a little different. They've got either 7,500 or 10,000,
Mhm.
living unit equivalents that are going to be in that area, but that's all San Marcos.
Okay.
Right? So it's a MUD, but it's in the San Marcos ETJ. So that parcel your cursor was over, they are trying to develop to basically take advantage of the MUD development, but they are in a separate jurisdiction, City of Kyle rather than San Marcos.
Okay.
But the key spine road, if you will, that is going to go back and access or service all those areas.
This one?
It's gonna be
Or your- a
158.
thoroughfare
Yeah,
through
yeah,
here.
yeah.
Okay.
East-west thoroughfare.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, right through there. I'm actually meeting with the developer this afternoon they're gonna show me their new alignment, so
Okay.
I don't know where it's gonna be in
Okay.
conflict with the pipeline, or it may not at all.
Okay.
But just know that, right now, that's where they are in their plans, is they're trying to figure out that major boulevard to get back into that Waterstone
Okay.
mud. Okay.
And just to go a little bit, more, west of where he's at, where the homes are, that subdivision. You said you need a 50-foot right-of-way for this?
That's correct, yes.
Are you sure there's even going to be a 25-foot from the pipeline to the property line of those homes? Because those homes come pretty close to the road.
Mhm. So right now, it's planned, and so if I don't have data that can show me where it's planned to be placed,
Oh, yeah. Now you're on the other side of 158 there. So 158 is, county road.
Mhm.
On the south side where you are, that's probably, that's better. What Tracy's referring to as Post Oak subdivision.
Mhm.
So 158 is one potential entryway into that Waterstone mud, and I know that the plan is to widen it. Right now it's, Leon, I don't know what the cross section is.
2 lanes,
Yeah, 30 feet, yeah.
Not even 20.
so a smaller thoroughfare.
Yeah.
Okay.
It will turn into a large boulevard because
Okay.
of the Waterstone mud that it's going to be
Okay.
accessing.
Okay,
But what I'm concerned about is the proximity of that pipeline to those homes that are already built and already, on land. And, people living in it now, so.
uh-huh. Alan, do you wanna speak to that, just proximity, or would you like me to
Well,
take that question?
so we're talking about existing homes and
Mhm.
distance.
Yeah, cause you need a 50-foot right-of-way, so
Yeah.
half of that to the homes would be 25. Are we sure you have a 25-foot right-of-way there?
Well, just from siting in proximity to homes generally, is, the separation that needs to be is our easement. As far as, our easement could technically go right up next to the, property owner's property line.
Right.
Technically.
Right,
And
that's
many
what I mean.
times, frankly, we've got development that comes on top of after our pipeline is already there and comes up right up to our easement with homes. So, our goal is to have, overall, if you look at everything's being equal, to have the farthest distance as possible from homes.
Mhm.
But there are developments that come right up to the edge of our easement. So it's not impossible to have a route that comes within that type of proximity to homes. We try to avoid that as much as we can, and I don't know what homes we're referring to here that are within, I don't see any.
Yeah, we're on the other
So
side of
I
I
the
thought
will
we were on the
point-
other side of the road.
Yeah, we are on the other side of the
Okay.
road, and so I wanna point out here that the red line is the center line.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the buffer on either side of the red line, that's actually the permanent easement that would be planned.
Okay, so
And
the
so it's
blue line
25
is,
foot
okay.
each way of the center line.
And the other
Okay.
stuff you see in yellow is temporary, work
workspace.
Temporary workspace.
Correct.
Yeah, not
Okay.
home.
It's just
Well,
construction.
no, and I understand.
But I just wanted to.
First,
Yeah.
I guess my speciality with that was thinking that the 25 was a lot larger than what you're showing in the blue,
okay.
so, or
But
the
I-
50-foot in the blue.
Yeah, you make
Okay.
a good point though, and I think it's really important to understand how our history with development in relation to pipelines, particularly in growing areas, is that the developments will come up next to our right of way frequently. And homes and pools and all kinds of sheds and stuff will be literally right up next to the edge of our 50-foot easement. That happens very frequently.
And I understand, and that's a decision that they
Right.
make when they
Right.
build. However, these homes here don't have that decision,
Right.
you know.
Right, absolutely, and that's when we're citing, that's one of the top factors we look at is
Yeah.
proximity to existing.
You know, because when they bought their
existing
homes, they didn't know they were gonna
Absolutely.
be next to a pipeline,
Absolutely, yep,
you know, so.
understood.
Okay, so I've walked you all through the preferred route and showed you some alternatives. Are there any other questions that you may have just in general? Or are there specific areas you'd like to dig in further to of what we've
I've got a question
evaluated?
about environmental. I mean,
Sure.
This is very cursory, obviously, but if we're going through karst areas.
Yes.
And, some of these have, luckily, have already done those surveys, right? They've done a bird study because they are within development now. Are you taking into account those karst formations? Have you already done your subsurface study?
So we're in the planning stages, and when we start getting into detailed engineering, we do evaluate that, and that is planned. It's very important, for our best management practices in pipeline engineering. We do evaluate not just the superficial impact, but also the subsurface impact as well.
Yeah, because this is a lot of clay, especially on the east side here. And how does clay affect the structure of your pipeline? Because like
In
for us,
regard to like movement.
movement and
Okay.
such, yeah.
Yeah, so for house foundations, it's
Mhm.
completely different, so by comparison to the pipeline. So we prepare our ditch and our trench line such that the movement is limited, and that if there is movement, the pipeline is designed to handle that. Just like in the karst formations that he mentioned,
Mhm.
so it's similar engineering that's involved.
Okay. And just out of curiosity, how many, in the last 20 years, how many pipeline explosions or fires or anything have there been nationwide?
Nationwide,
Mhm.
Alan?
How many?
Mhm.
In the last 20 years?
Yeah.
I don't know a specific number. To the transportation generally,
Mhm.
from a underground transportation method, is the safest way to transport. But it's not without risk. There
Mhm.
certainly is risk associated with pipelines. We do everything we can to mitigate that risk. Education is a big part of it. When there are pipeline incidents, it's very often external impact. That something strikes a pipeline that causes an incident. I can speak to our company, and you're welcome to visit our website. We're the only energy company that publishes our safety stats on our website. And you can fully view our how we've done, how we compare with the rest of the industry. And safety is our number one priority. But anybody that can go on the internet and do research about pipeline incidents and pipeline safety, we're governed by the Pipeline Hazardous Materials Safety Administration, Bureau of Transportation, Railroad Commission has a role, so a whole host of safety factors in there. But I understand your point, and particularly when there's a pipeline sited in an area which hasn't had a pipeline sited in recently, it's important for us to make sure that the appropriate education is out there. For example, as the pipeline gets closer to being in service, we'll be having discussions with emergency responders and making sure people understand pipeline safety and protocols and all of that. but again, it's the safest way to transport, but it's certainly not without some risk that wasn't there before, because there's now a pipeline in the area. But safety is our number one priority as a company. We're very proud of our safety record. And I think you look at Kinder Morgan, throughout the state of Texas, we have over 20,000 miles of pipeline in the state. And we really have a very, very good safety record.
Yeah, but your company can be sold next year, so, all companies can be these days, so,
I certainly hope that's not.
Well, I know, I understand, but I'm just saying, all
I understand
companies,
pipeline ownership does change from time to time. from
well,
different
any
companies.
company,
Yeah.
GE could be sold, next week. Because on the other side of that subdivision that we were talking about a few moments ago, there's a school. And even in the Blanco Ranch, there's going to be schools in there, and so that really concerns me on the proximity to the schools. But I guess my main question here is, why in one of the fastest growing counties and why in one of the fastest growing cities?
Yeah.
That's
And that's the challenge with pipeline siting is, if you look at I don't know if we have our overall project map, but you can see where we start and where we finish. And if it were completely with no considerations of any kind, you'd have a straight line from here to here, absolutely straight, because that's the quickest,
Right.
Most efficient way to get there. Obviously, that's not the case. So before we ever announce a preliminary route on the project, it has all kinds of zigs and zags all over the place. But we still need to be in a general direction of getting to a particular endpoint. So that's what we've done in our initial analysis, is we've developed that corridor, is what we call it, really, a corridor where we want to go. And we've tried to take into consideration environmental issues, number of landowners impacted, construction viability, overall distance of the line, which is very important, not just for cost, but for the environmental impacts. Every adjustment that we make, that's not we've already made dozens, and we'll probably make hundreds before we're done, of individual routing adjustments for landowner issues. I was just telling me this morning, the one they made yesterday to move a pipe on an existing property from maybe the center of the property to the edge of the property, those types of things. But what I want you to understand is, before this was announced and before we laid out this initial survey corridor, we've tried to take into account other options, all of which, when you put everything together, not to say the city of Kyle and this area is not very, very important, but maybe another routing adjustment would have involved 50 more landowners, or may have involved more distance or more river crossings, or a whole host of things. So what we're doing today, though, is now we're down to the point with this corridor identified, how can we make this corridor the least impactful in this area? So the discussions that we're taking away from here today, and I think we've got some really good information,
Absolutely.
and we'll continue that, is how can we make this least impactful, understanding that it's not going to be perfect, that a perfect world may be for us to go 70 miles south. Understood. But from a understanding, and so we try to design these projects that thread that needle, if you will, of all those various, sometimes competing concerns. We have to secure our permits, we have to get our authorizations from the Corps of Engineers, Railroad Commission, and environmental agencies, all of those things. I hope that from the meeting we had previously from today, while maybe not 100% in agreement with what we're doing, you will feel that we are genuinely interested in addressing what you have brought to our attention, that we do respond to that, and that's why Kevin's here as our project director, and Angela as our project manager, these are the folks that are building this pipe. And I wanted them to hear from you directly about your concerns and take this back, and that's what they're gonna do now. But again, they've got to weigh what you all have brought us with, and that's why Angela says we take all this data back, crunch it, and try to come up with something that is the least impactful. And those are really our operative words as a project, the least impactful. We know there are gonna be impacts, but if you can tell us things that are of primary concern from a city perspective, we're gonna do our best to follow those, do our best.
Can I share a couple of things?
Yeah.
Sorry, Dex, were you gonna speak?
Yes, but go ahead real quick. I was just gonna say, I think a big part of it would be just public outreach, education. You talked about that. I think that's important. I was going to ask what percentage of the property owners along this proposed line have you all spoken with? How have those conversations gone? Or I know obviously y'all are still in this stage of outreach and different things. What is, if you could elaborate on your plan with that? I definitely understand there's concerns, there's risk with pipelines. That's our Texas economy though. I understand pipelines are necessary. I would say, obviously you definitely get the point A straight line to point B, and you all are looking at different options there. As far as your permits with in the environment, I know you said you all have your statistics on your website, but do you all also post your permits and what you've all received, or is it just you all extracting that data and putting it on your website? So that's another question, and if so, where could we find those permits? That's probably, I'm sure, public record as well. And then I guess just the management plan. I know we've also touched on, you hit on the accidents that typically happen. I understand it's, difficult to know exactly how many have happened. You said typically those are external things, people, doing things to mess with the pipeline. What kind of things are in place? I know there are things to protect the pipeline as well. Will there be fences? What happens along this easement to kind of mitigate those things from happening as well? Those are just some things off the top of my head from just the discussions we've been having.
I think a few of those I can, we may have to get back to you on a couple of them, but let's start with the overall contact with landowners. We're pretty much 100%. We've got, I think the last check I had, we had 3 or 4 across the entire route that had some type of contact. Now that doesn't mean they're all in agreement, and I don't want to give you any number on specifics on acquisition or that, because they're in various stages and it changes every day, but it's going fine. I mean, we have people that are okay and sign me up. We've got people that need more information. We've got people that will work with you, but let's take a look at a potential route adjustment. And we've got people that are strongly opposed, and maybe we can try to get off of their property. Believe it or not, we have people that want us to come onto their property that we're not on their property. And because we're compensating folks for these easements at a very fair amount. So that's the kind of where we are in that process. It's in flux, but I think from our experience as one of the leading operators in the state of Texas, we think it's going pretty well at this point. You mentioned about outreach and communications. I mentioned at our first meeting that if there's an interest for us to come and speak to the city council at a public meeting, we're certainly willing to do that at your discretion. We're going to have an open house in town here in February, the week of February 11th. We'll get back to you probably by tomorrow with the date. And I think we're looking at a middle school, or
we're looking at, I believe it's Wallace Middle School.
Okay. We like to have a big space. I think we'll probably get a few people that are interested in attending.
One of the things that I asked Scott this morning when I got here is I wanted to make sure that meeting incorporated invitations to not just our city council, but Mountain City City Council, the school board, the superintendent, as well as the county commissioners, so that can be a purely open conversation.
Yeah, and in addition to that, we'll do all that, we'll put into ads in the newspaper.
Our newspaper, it would
Or-
need to be.
Or whatever you think is the best way to communicate. You can post it on your website, we'll post it on ours,
Like next
we'll send
door
out.
and stuff like that. Our newspaper isn't overly
Outreach.
outreaching.
However you think is the best way to
Yeah.
communicate to get to the most people, we're happy to do
And
that
maybe
because.
you could get with Tim Savoy Tim Savoy is the PIO of the school district, and he
Okay,
has
well, we're-
access to all the emails of all the children in the school district.
Okay.
And they go straight to the parents.
Okay.
And that would actually probably be the best way to contact everybody.
Well, we absolutely want to be sure that everyone knows that this is open. And the thing I hate to hear is, well, I didn't know anything about that.
Well, you'll still hear that,
Yeah, yeah.
no matter what, but, you know.
But we'll do our best, So those things are, a presentation to you all and then a public meeting forthcoming. And we're gonna be doing a series of those around the area as well. Kyle will be one, and we've got more planned in Hayes and Gillespie and other counties as well. So those were a couple things you mentioned. You mentioned, I think, too, about the permits. I'm not sure what
Yes,
that
yeah,
was.
so you were mentioning on your website and statistics as far as how you all do as far as environmental issues and different things like that. So I was just asking, I guess, the permits that you all be obtaining, I'm assuming you all are still in that process as well. There's a number of agencies I read through your material that you all have to go through. Once you all obtain those permits from these different agencies, will that information also be provided on your website, or do you all extract data from that?
So the data on the website is specific to safety, not environmental.
Okay.
So safety statistics on incidents related to the pipeline.
Okay.
I suppose there's sort of an environmental component to that, but from a permitting perspective, any of the permits that we receive from the agencies are available in whatever public way those are available. We don't post those on any website or our own website, but the agencies will have those, and we'll issue whatever final certifications we have.
Okay.
I thought there was one more.
How do we mitigate potential third-party impacts to the
Oh,
pipeline?
okay, and then safety
Sure, the
generally,
safety,
and so I think that is important to talk about pipeline safety for a bit. So as mentioned, we have a 50-foot permanent easement on the pipeline. The pipeline is buried underground, a minimum of 3 feet of cover. That's often much deeper. If we're gonna go under the Blanco River, for example, will be much deeper than 3 feet, below the bottom of the river. So our pipeline systems are monitored 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, remotely from our control center in Houston. We have shutdown systems on the pipeline in the case of an incident where we can shut down the system and segregate a section. The pipeline is, going back to the construction aspect, high quality steel, buried at a safe depth. And we have cathodic protection on our pipelines, which is to avoid electric current applied to avoid corrosion. That's why pipelines are in service for 60, 70 years sometimes. That's not uncommon. And it's coated with an epoxy that avoids corrosion. We patrol our lines from the air and from the ground on a regular basis, monthly basis. We run an inspection tool through the pipeline internally on a regular basis to make sure there's no anomalies or problems with the line. And the technology is always getting better. It's worlds apart from 50 years ago on what we're doing today. To be able to detect things, to make sure that the pipeline is in good working order 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And it doesn't need a person standing on the line all the time to know what's going on. We're able to, through technology, to monitor everything. So if there's a pressure loss in the system or something, we can shut things down and maintain the integrity of the system. So that's kind of an overview of what our normal procedures are. We'll be doing that here. So there'll be both a physical presence and all the available technology to make sure the pipeline operates safely. And it starts with construction too. This is our business, and in the construction, from the design of the project to the construction, train employees, construction workers, land agents who understand the individual needs of landowners. You know, if there's something in on a landowner's property, every tract is unique. We try to, if there's other infrastructure out there, we're going to be beneath it, because you know when you start digging a trench, there's a lot of stuff out there. So we're avoiding other things that are out there when we construct, and so a whole host of things goes in when our engineering team, and we, I mean, the construction part is I don't want to say the easy part, but it's the quickest part. It's the preparation for doing that takes months of work. And so before we move a shovel of dirt, obviously all the permits are going to be secured, the land is going to be acquired, but most importantly, all the engineering in place to make sure that this is done right. And you know, from working with you all at the city, and I was a city councilman myself, sitting on your side of the table. I've been there. I understand what you're dealing with your constituents. We have a particular appreciation for that. This is a start of a relationship that's going to last a long time. You know, we're short-term construction. Our construction will be relatively quick, but the pipeline is there, as Councilwoman, as you mentioned. And we want the relationship we have with your neighbors, because they're going to be our landowners moving forward, and our land department and those that are dealing with them. Everybody's not going to be thrilled about this. We understand that. But we want to do everything we can, because the landowner that we work with today, the council that we work with today, maybe the council, maybe you're going to be in the council for 20 years. I don't know. Maybe 20 years will still be there. But
Term limits.
maybe
Term
not. But it will be a council that we're working with, and we want to do this. And in all sincerity, though, and that's why Kevin and Angela are here. Is we really want to do this right, and because what we do here in Kyle has implications across not just the rest of the route, but the state and the country. People watch what's happening. I mean, you've got your tape going there, we know that, but we want to do everything we can. So I'm committing you today, and I know Kevin and our senior manager feels the same way. We're going to do everything we can to be responsive and to address your concerns. And you have our information, and feel free, any individual council member too, at any time, to contact Jake or I, and the city manager, obviously, and the rest of the folks here. And we've been talking to Jerry a lot on a regular, and Jerry, I hope we've been responsive to your
Very responsive. Thank you.
questions, and we're going to continue to commit to do that. Not promising we can address everything, but we're going to do our best.
Okay, so I have a couple of
Before
questions.
Before you go though, because I do have to get going, I apologize, I have to get to the job that pays the bills.
Yeah.
But I appreciate you all coming, I appreciate your time, the explanations. I will have more questions, so I
Sure.
appreciate what you
Yep.
just said about reaching out, and that there will be a town hall next month, so I'm looking forward to spreading that word as much as possible. One other thing I was going to ask was, I know you've looked at different developments and planning and different things, but as well as transportation plans, have you all looked at any of those? Obviously, we're going through our major corridor here in the city of Kyle and things like that, so just another option. I won't stick around for the answer. I'm sure my colleagues will have much more questions for you. Thank you all for your time, though. I appreciate it.
thank
Look forward
you.
to talking to
Thank you.
So I do have a couple questions.
Yes.
Thank you.
My main question, I mean, I've lived near a pipeline, haven't had an issue with it. In Travis County, they're all over the place.
Right.
But I guess I'd like to know, where are y'all around here that you have pipes that we could actually go answer questions like, this is what it looks like, this is what
Mhm.
it's, you know.
So you have the county map.
Mhm.
You can show them where the nearest pipeline is.
We have an LCRA pipeline, but it's a power plant, goes to Plum Creek.
So in your packet on the back sheet of the set labeled Hayes County, kind of like a fact sheet of what we've got county specific. There's a preliminary map that shows, you know, where our existing pipeline labeled as KMTP, where it enters Hayes County in the north central part of the county here, and then where it goes into Travis County and continues.
Okay.
Is it the same size?
It-
Cause I know this is what, gonna be
No,
a
it's not-
42.
It's not, but from a disturbance standpoint, from an above-ground standpoint, there'll be no difference. It's
Okay.
still gonna be the same right-of-way, it's still gonna look the same. And-
Okay.
And what we can do too, if it's of interest, we've done many times with cities and counties, is take you out to see it. Or organize a time when we can be there with you and show you, or anything like that that you think would be helpful from an educational perspective, we'd be happy to do.
Sounds good.
Or at the very minimum, provide you the exact location and you can do it at your leisure.
Convenience. And then I wanted to say thank you for all the information. Like I said, I don't think that, I've lived near them, it's never been a problem for me, but I know that there's gonna be a lot of questions and concerns of those who've never had the proximity before. And I appreciate all of the town halls that you'll be doing, and I know you're gonna be inundated with a lot of questions. And just remember, it's new to a lot of people. So, and I appreciate your working with us, and I look forward to seeing the new maps with the new information that you'll be getting from the city manager, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time,
So,
appreciate it.
Before we adjourn here, just to bring up a couple of points. So one of my concerns is the alignment that, Dex shared earlier, transportation plans, and the alignment goes along some major either planned corridors for new construction or expansion. Obviously, you know about the 150 bypass. I'm sure you've worked very closely with, Kate Freeze and TxDOT on that, Hayes County. The Campo master plan, as well as the City of Kyle Transportation Master Plan, has Opal Lane expanding. And I'll show you right here, I guess. You've got, this section right here of Opal. The plan calls for a much wider cross-section of the road. So want you to be aware of that. Leon, I'm not sure if we're looking at a 3-lane there or
3 to 4 lanes.
3 to 4. Now, I'm not going to predict the future here, but I'm going to tell you that in the Campo 2040 plan, it shows a TxDOT interchange with 35 here at Opal, which is, right in this area as well. Again, I don't know if and when that's going to occur, but you need to be aware that that is in their plan right now. So this, is 158 is actually planning on swinging down and being part of that interchange, and Opal being the western leg of the interchange. So just to be aware of that plan. I do know that 158, as I mentioned earlier, will be widening, especially here on the east side. Accommodate Waterstone, it's in the county's plan, it's in the city's transportation master plan. So to get a copy of those, the reason I bring that up is, I came here from Kilgore, so
yeah.
I'm very familiar with what you're talking
Right in
about.
the heart
now.
of it, yeah.
Right in the heart. We joked that the city, or everything fell through the earth right there. Kilgore would be the only city that was saved because it'd be on this blanket of pipeline, a mesh. And that's probably very accurate. There's hardly any of the city that's not over a pipeline. But any sort of construction project or road crossing, wet utility that was over a pipeline, we had a horrible time because you don't want anything crossing your pipeline. And I get that. This depth might be a little different, and we might be a little more, or have more ability to cross, but only in a perpendicular fashion.
Right.
And, with the proper bedding, et cetera, we might have to build up over ground to get the proper distance away from the pipeline. I want to make sure that with all of our plans, as well as, again, the neighborhood plans, that there's proper depth. We're here at the pipeline, so we're not constantly running into an issue where we had a parallel road plan, and yet now we've got to move our roadway. And in some of those areas, like in Bluff River Ranch, for example, where 150 alignment is proposed, it's right on a shelf or a certain geographical feature where the road fits just perfectly. And if the pipeline crosses that in a certain way, parallels where that road's going to be, we're going to be in big trouble, right? With the construction of the road. You know, same here with Opal. You know, as we expand, we'd be expanding into that easement, and that's not gonna work for you, obviously, it wouldn't work for us. So, but I do appreciate, in the same vein, that you're trying to follow as much right-of-way as possible. We try not to congest our right-of-way for expansion purposes, and we have a lot of other utilities that try to jump into their right-of-way, of course, natural gas, telecom, et cetera. For each of those, we have a franchise, and, you know, there's a price that, you know, compensation rendered back to the municipality for use of our right-of-way. And I know you typically don't do that, but I know you can as well. So, you know, where you're planning on being in city right-of-way, I think we would want to talk at least about some sort of franchise compensation for use of those right-of-ways. I guess that those are the points. I just want to make sure that we are going to be able to follow through with our construction plans, and they're not going to be hindered by a pipeline that may get there first, where the plan for our expansion was there prior to the pipeline.
Do you have access to everything you need as far as all of these plans, or?
No, so
how
that's
do
why I
we-
requested the
So
shape
we're gonna
files.
be
We
exchanging.
need shape files, we need,
Yeah.
the
We need
transportation
the-
master
the
plan, the
transportation
Campo
plans.
plan, yeah,
Okay.
there's a
Yeah.
lot.
So
Okay.
we're gonna be in,
Please.
a lot of
Seeing you a
communication.
lot.
Yeah.
I hope so, I hope so, yeah.
Okay.
I really appreciate this. Thank you so much.
Yes,
Randy.
most
Thank you for
definitely, and
meeting
please
so early in
understand,
the
I'm not,
morning.
but
Yeah,
like he
I
comes from
understand.
Kilgore, I come from Galveston, Texas City.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so
Yeah.
please understand,
Yeah.
yeah, been
Yeah.
through quite
Yeah.
a few,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
so,
Okay.
so please understand that, and,
Absolutely.
I do understand pipelines are, you know, necessary, but, I just worry about.
Possible future issues.
Exactly, yeah, we don't need a, you know, anchor traveling 25 miles and landing in a
Yeah, right.
somebody's, you know, house, which has happened.
Is the whole line under pressure, or how much of the line, yeah, the entire line?
Mhm.
Is your schedule still fall of 19 to start construction?
Right.
So you've got a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
We do.
Yeah, we do.
Yes, it'll be a busy year.
What's the diameter of the pipe?
42.
42? It's big.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I measured it on my tape measure. It was, oh my gosh.
Yes.